Good evening. I've had a bit of a day of it. In fact, I've had a few days of it. This morning, outside the BBC, we had the Metropolitan Police's Project Servitor. You should Google it. Project Servitor is where the police get the public to spy on other members of the public. And they also create fear and paranoia. Project Servitor has screwed with the lives of many a protester. And they like to threaten and intimidate people who protest. I ignored them when they were down here. I didn't go and speak to them. I ignored them on purpose. But they couldn't leave here without actually speaking to me and telling me who they were. Project Servitor will tell you that they are watching you, and they are watching you all the time. You are under intense surveillance. For speaking truth, basically. Since I've been down here, I've had the harassment techniques, the waking up through the night by BBC security, the threats, the dirty looks, all those kind of things that make you feel uncomfortable, to unsettle you, interfering with my property, messing about with my tent, all these kind of games they like to play. I'm still here. More recently, we're getting a softly approach. I had a young man called Will come down this afternoon. I was talking to somebody else. We were having quite a good chat. And he was standing there for a long time listening. So I thought I'd invite him into our conversation. So I didn't have to repeat myself about why I'm here and what I'm doing. And explain all my nonsensical signs. But then he rather took over the conversation. And the other chap watched and listened for quite a long time. I felt a bit bad for him, really, because it's almost like he got shoved out of the conversation. But I kept looking at him and I could see he was watching and listening to what was going on. And he supported me, actually, part way through. He disagreed with the other person and said that actually he could see exactly where I was coming from. And then he wandered off. And I regretted that. I felt I'd neglected him maybe because the other person was a bit more forceful in the conversation, you know. But they were questioning me like a journalist might question you. I've no idea who this person was. They told me their name was Will. And they were quite testy to start out with. And I don't mind being tested. I don't mind being questioned. It's fine by me. But I asked a lot of good questions. They were trying to get to some sort of truth, which is fine. I like that when people do that. They wanted to understand. They were here for a very, very long time. Will was. At one point they said they were very, very cold, and it is cold out here. And they needed to go, but then they stayed for another 20 minutes, half an hour. This was a very well-spoken, well-educated person I was speaking to. They were very cagey about giving me any information about themselves. They sounded like a journalist. I asked them if they were a journalist. They said no. They appeared to be recording the conversation. They said no. It didn't matter if they were recording or not, really, to me. My truth is my truth. It's as simple as that. However, what people do when you have questions for them, and I do have questions for organisations like the BBC, is they like to question you first, so they can prepare themselves if they should ever talk to you and you ask them questions. They already know what questions you might be asking. So they can mount a defence and give you an immediate answer. Because it's been carefully crafted, because they already know what questions you're going to ask. Does that make sense? I'm very tired. Very tired. I'll let you think about that for a second. I'll have a puff on my fag. And then not long after that, I had a woman come down called Tracy Blackwell. I know a little bit about Tracy Blackwell. I looked at Tracy Blackwell's case. What has motivated her to become somebody who speaks out. I had quite a long conversation with Tracy and her friend. I understand Tracy because she's speaking out and she's speaking the truth. And she understands the kind of harassment you can get when that happens. Unless you've actually experienced it in your real life, you wouldn't really understand it. It's quite difficult to explain. It's often psychologically based. And especially when you're doing these things across social media, there are a lot of shills, agitators, trolls, in muddy waters. I understand perfectly why Tracy is doing what she's doing. And I think she has a very good point. A very good point. She shouldn't have to fight so hard. They always make people fight so hard for truth and justice when they're covering crap up. Ask the people in Liverpool about the 97. Turns out that me and Tracy have similar experiences, really, of agitators and shills, and we found quite a lot of agreement. At least I felt we found quite a lot of agreement. I watched the documentary that Tracy made. Good job. And I noted, I've got a number of comments. I'd love to chat to Tracy right now after watching it. I would love to have chatted to her while I was watching it, because there was a lot of things that I noticed in that documentary. Tracy said that she had evidence that counter-terrorism were involved in that incident. That's your answer right there, really. It's your answer to why she's having to fight so hard. It might also be your answer to why certain strains of media have portrayed things in a certain way that are not the truth. Thinking back to that documentary, I've got a lot in my head, so I can't really remember the names. I've only watched it once. Something that's sticking in my mind is Tracy speaking to a woman police officer, high-ranking officer, I think, who doesn't want to look at certain evidence. Tracy's guilt-tripping her. Quite rightly, I think. The thing about these people is they're ambitious, these police officers. They want to progress up the ranks. And to progress up the ranks, you have to stick to the party line. You can't be a police officer anymore. You stick to the party line, because they're told sticking to the party line is for the greater good. And they might not even know what that greater good is. They're just told it. It's for the greater good. And they comply, because they know if they don't comply, they're not going to move up the ranks. To move up the ranks, you have to comply. You don't ask questions. When you're told it's for the greater good, you stick to the party line. That was very obvious to me when she was talking to that woman police officer. Sorry, I'm rambling now. I'm quite tired. I'm warm in my sleeping bag though, Tracy. Thanks very much. Anyway, that's about 13 minutes of waffle for me, isn't it? I don't know if I made any sense. I'm too tired today. But it was a pleasure to meet Tracy and her fella. It was nice to meet somebody who has a battle of their own, and they have to take on the state, and they understand what dirty tricks the state will use to grind you down and shut you up. Because there's a lot of people float around on social media who pick sides, only know one side of an argument. Think they're playing power games, leaving silly comments left, right and centre. Sorry, going off onto another tangent. Best of luck, Tracy. It'll always be a pleasure to see you.